Yo, yo, what's up, guys? Dan Theory at Theory BFF here again. It's Wednesday. It's week 11. You know what that means. Start and sits. I'm going to combine the news with this as I'm just trying to hit on a couple small pieces. But before we jump in the news and my start and sits, I'm going to give a quick shout out to my beautiful co host, Nick Sparks at Nick Sparks with a Z, not an S, Christopher Hopper at HopBFF. Go follow those beautiful assholes on there, especially the show page at Beerfield FF on the show. We're going to give you guys all your best news, all your certain sits questions will be answered, and things like that. Provide you with funny content and amongst other things. But don't want to take up too much of this time. We're gonna jump into quick news, the 3 or 4 breaking news of today. Zeke, this news actually this one just dropped here not too long ago. Zeke has withdrawn his appeal and will serve out a 6-game suspension, finally ending this fucking train wreck. Moving forward, Alfred Morris, Rod Smith will be the two primary ball carriers. Both looked okay last week against Atlanta, more on the bad side than okay. With the loss of Tyron Smith, though, it really hurt this running game. When he comes back, expect things to be fine. Morris will continue to see the first two-down work and goal line short yardage work, while Rod Smith will continue to work in the passing game amongst things like that. Next, Aaron Rodgers is starting to do football-related activities with his trainers. This marks the first time since he's broken his collarbone and put on IR that he's doing actual football activities. He won't be eligible to play until week 15. Depending on what the Packers' record is at that point and if they're in the playoff hunt, will they activate him or not? And then the two biggest news, Nathan Peterman and Blaine Gabbert are both named starters for their respective teams. First, before we jump into Nathan Peterman, which seems to be the bigger news, is Blaine Gabbert finally gets to start in Arizona. He was a better-looking quarterback in preseason. The three of us were fairly shocked that he didn't get to start once Palmer went down. But here it is, finally. I think this is a bump to everybody. This may be a slight unknown with the guy like Jermaine Gresham as he was getting targets from Stanton. We don't know what we're going to get from Gabbert. Everybody should be fine, especially guys like Fitz, but we'll see more moving forward. Um, then Nathan Peterman, Hopper's new massive man crush. He's always liked him, but it seems to be even more so at this point. The three of us, especially Hopper and I, thought that he was a better fit for the direction that the Bills are taking. And trading away Sammy Watkins, trading for Jordan Matthews, and then eventually bringing in Kelvin Benjamin. And drafting Zay Jones. Three of these receivers aren't deep threats or more of work over the middle, work the sidelines, 10 to 20 yards down the field type of players. Guy like, Jordan Matthews and Zay Jones can work over the middle, really well. While Benjamin is a guy that if you can place it in decent spots, he can win 50-50 balls fairly regularly. Not the greatest at it, but good enough. Peterman just has that better skill set than opposed to Tyrod Taylor. So he gets to start moving forward, and Blaine Gabbert moving forward. Big news. But that's enough of the news. You'll hear more of our thoughts at the show on this stuff when we record our podcast tonight, dropping either tonight or early tomorrow morning. We're going to move on to our start and sits. As always, we'll start with starts because we like to eviscerate people more. 3 quarterbacks, like usual. 2 of my main starts and a sleeper pick. Derek Carr. I have Derek Carr as a top 10 QB for this week. The matchup on paper may not seem great, as New England's been very good against QBs over the last 4 games. But Matt Ryan was the only real threat they faced during that span, and a little bit of weather, a little bit of fog in that game may have hurt his bigger playability as he started to get going a little bit more in the second half of that game. I've stated this over the last a few weeks. For the Raiders to start winning and to keep up in this playoff race, they need to rely on their 3 main pieces on offense, and that's Carr, Cooper, and Crabtree. I expect this game to be somewhat of a shootout. Oakland's defense is still really bad. New England has been susceptible to all positions if this happens, especially receivers. So I expect Carr to have a decent game. They may not win. I don't think they will. I think New England will beat them in Oakland. But I expect Carr to have a nice day. Next is Jay Cutler. First off, fuck Jay Cutler for winning me my game. I'm trying to lose and get a better dynasty draft pick. But either way, he's on a nice stretch right now. Since trading Ajayi, the offense has started to look somewhat better. Everybody seems, they're getting Julius Thomas involved. Both the running backs are decent. Drake more so than Williams. Dolphins did get their ass kicked against the Panthers on Monday night, but they're the #1 defense in football right now in terms of total yards allowed. The Bucs have been absolutely fucking garbage on the road. This is in Miami. They've allowed 2 top 5 finishes, 4 QBs, and the other 2, because they played 4 road games this year, were top 10 finishes. So Color is looking to give you another top 12 finish this week. Then my sleeper pick is Case Keenum. He's not going to give you huge top 5 numbers. This isn't the best matchup. The Rams have been pretty good this year, but this is a battle of one of the two best teams in the NFC right now. That's very strong. They both want to come out very good. It's kind of a revenge game for Case Keenum, and I expect him to want to prove that he should be the starter. That he should keep being the starter going forward. So I do like Case Keenum as my sleeper this week. Moving on to running backs. Another Miami running back here, Kenyon Drake. He had a big play last week. He said back-to-back 40-plus yard plays since the Giants been traded, which was 2 games ago for them. This was per, I believe, the guys from ESPN. Sorry, I'm making weird faces while trying to think. But Tampa Bay on the road has been fucking abysmal. They've allowed in all 4 of these games, they've allowed a top 4 finish to a running back in all these games. Cook was #4 in week 4. I believe in week 6 it was, I forgot who they played now. I believe it was Peterson was #4 in that week. LaShawn McCoy the following week was #2. And then Kamara was the last one 2 weeks ago again. And then Ingram was even a top 26 finish. So, love Kenyon Drake this week. I actually like Damian Williams as well as a sleeper this week. He's one of 2 of my sleepers. Both my starts will feature 2 running backs from this team. Like Drake this week, as I said, the Bucs are really bad on the road against everybody, it seems like. Then my next one is James White. If it wasn't for a late touchdown, or if it wasn't for a late, end of the game touchdown, he would have had a bad night against the Broncos Sunday night. But this is a lot better matchup. Oakland has given up the 6th most receptions of running backs in the season, the 13th most targets, and the 7th most yards. Even with the emergence of Burkhead, this smells like a get-right game for James White. They didn't need him on Sunday night against the Broncos. They'll get more involved with him more as the Oakland just has a better offense than Denver does, and not a better defense, obviously, but to me, this just seems more of a get-right game for James White. But mentioning Rex Burkhead, I actually like him as a sleeper this week. I actually have these guys ranked back-to-back as top and as mid RB2 players because they'll eat into each other's work. But Rex Burkhead has turned into the do-it-all back for New England. Yeah, White with the pass-catching work. Yeah, Deion Lewis was more of the groundwork than Burkhead just does both. May not get the touches, but I like what he's done with his chances so far. Excuse me. So far. So I like both him and James White this week. Moving on to receivers. Fitz. Gerald. Have no fear. The better of the backup QBs is starting now. And Blaine Gabbert. Woo! As I just said before. Houston's been absolutely garbage against wide receivers this year, especially since their bye week 3 weeks ago. In those 3 games, they've given up 400-yard performances to receivers. Fish should have no problem against this bad secondary. Next, my favorite, the show's maybe favorite, everyone's favorite, Juju Smith-Schuster. Motherfucking Team Juju, baby. We're going to keep this ball rolling on Thursday night. I didn't do a Thursday night start instead, I believe, last week. Maybe I did, I don't remember. But either way, I love Juju this week. Tennessee's been a bottom-half defense against receivers all season long. They've been getting a little bit better lately. But this Pittsburgh's offense, I think, is starting to maybe click in the passing game because you just can't roll coverage over to Juju's side because you got a guy named Antonio Brown on the other side or in the slot. And then you got Martavis Bryant, who is still a deep threat. It's a pick-your-poison type thing. Juju's been balling 2 weeks while Brown's kind of been his floor performances. And Juju's just been dominating when he's going to be getting those chances. It's been a beast so far, and I love to keep this ball rolling until proven otherwise. My sleeper is Jeremy Maclin. To me, it's a little hard to imagine Maclin as just a sleeper now. He's been a high in flex play, wide receiver 2 over the last 2-3 seasons. But with the injuries to him, the injuries to Flacco, the overall shitty offense of the Ravens, it just really has them painting that picture for him. But enters in Green Bay, who's been horrible in the season against receivers, 6th worst all season long, and 3rd worst over the last 4 weeks. I like the chemistry that's being built between Maclin and Flacco. Maclin actually had a season high in catches, targets, and yards in Week 9 against Tennessee, the last time the Ravens played. I like Maclin as a sleeper. Moving on to tight ends. This one's a really easy choice, boys. Tyler Kroft. Broncos have given up a touchdown to tight ends in 6 games this season, including 1 in the last 3 games. Dalton has shown that love to Kroft in the absence of Tyler Eifert being gone, and this team is still craving a number 2 target right next to A.J. Green. Kroft is a high-end tight end stream for me this week. Next, Cameron Brate. Brate's seen terrible weeks in back-to-back weeks, 1 reception in both, but entering the Dolphins, who's also been really bad against tight ends this season. They've given up the 5th most points per game to this position at 9, and have given up 5 touchdowns on this season, including 3 over the last 4 weeks. If Brate doesn't get it going this week, he is on timeout and dead to me. My sleeper is Mercedes Lewis. Hearns is out. The Jacksonville Jaguars are playing against the Browns. The Browns are the 2nd worst tight ends on the season this year. They've given up 11 points per game to them and 7 touchdowns on the season. They've gotten better, but if the Jaguars are going to continue this high uptick in attempts for Bortles, Lewis should be a benefactor of it this week. Moving on to my sits, the guys that we love to hate. Eli Manning. Look, the Chiefs' defense has been pretty bad against quarterbacks this year. This should be a good matchup for him. But if you look a little bit deeper, look at the quarterbacks they faced this year. Brady, Wentz, God, I've had them written down here. But either way, they face tough offenses, tough, good quarterbacks for the majority of the season. And they faced 3 pretty bad quarterbacks this year, at least somewhat bad. And that's in Rivers, who finished ranked 32nd in Week 3. Big Ben finished 18th in Week 6. And Simeon finished as the QB 20 in Week 8. They're a team that gets beat by good quarterbacks, but can handle their own against bad quarterbacks. Manning isn't a terrible quarterback. He just doesn't have any of his weapons. I do like Shepard and I do like Ingram, so they're the only pure target guys here. I just don't like Manning that much this week. Moving on to Andy Dalton. Denver is a lot like Kansas City, where they're getting beat by good quarterbacks. Denver has especially gotten their ass kicked the last 3 games. They've also faced 3 of the top 6 offenses coming into the right now during the span. You enter in Cincinnati, who's ranked dead last in total yards on offense right now. And Dalton, I think Denver has their get-right game. I like Kroft, obviously, but I don't like Andy Dalton this week. I believe Denver will have a somewhat get-right, kind of gross defensive matchup, as Cincinnati has a good defense as well. Then my bust alert, guys, you're going to start, but you may not feel great about. That's Jared Goff. Your QB1 over the last 2 weeks. Look, you're going to start him. Obviously, he's been a beast. He's had great matchups all year. I believe out of the 9 games he's played, he's had 4 or 5 plus matchups, a couple middle-of-the-road matchups. But he's had 2 bad matchups. I believe it was in back-to-back weeks. Seattle and Jacksonville. He scored 10 points and 7 points in those 2 games. And they get a Vikings defense who may not be as great against the pass as these 2 teams are, but they're still a good team against the pass and good overall defense. You're still going to start Goff. I don't think he's going to have a horrible game. I just don't think you should expect a top 5 finish from him this week, or even even top 10, maybe even top 12. Moving on to running backs, Doug Martin. The matchup is there. It's a great matchup for him. The Dolphins haven't been great really at all this season on defense, especially recently. But Doug Martin himself has been terrible the last 2 weeks. Scored no points 2 weeks ago. Scored 5 points last week in a half-point PPR, in a full-point PPR. He hasn't scored a touchdown since Week 6, and he's only averaging 2.6 yards per carry this season. Also, the emergence of Sims and Peyton Barber starting to do show on the offense. It's if you want to flex him out there because of the matchup, I don't blame you, but I don't trust him. He's on timeout for me right now. And as for the show, next is Samaje Perine. He is the new target. He will be the new carry leader here with Rob Kelly being placed on IR. But he gets the Saints, and the Saints have been an above-average run defense this year. That's been the one somewhat weakness they've allowed is runners, but Chris Thompson has posted his season highs in carries and touches when Rob Kelly isn't playing. P. Ryan will get the most carries, but I just don't like this matchup this week. I think it's going to be a lot of check down where they're going to they're going to continue to get Thompson involved in the game. I think that gives them the best chance to win or be competitive. And if the Saints jump out early like they did to the Bucks or to the Bills last week, I expect Thompson to see most, if not all, the work. The Met Bust alert, 2 weeks in a row, Adrian Peterson. He faced a pretty fucking good Seattle defense last Thursday night. That was on a short week. You may throw that in there as well. Now they say Houston, which is an even better run defense. This team can be beat through the air, not through the ground, not on the ground. I don't like Adrian Peterson this week. I understand if you got to start him because of matchups or not matchups, because of bye weeks or injuries, but I don't trust him this week, and I would rather play other people. I like Damian Williams and things like that. Moving on to receivers, Sammy Watkins. He's been on fire lately, scoring twice over the last 2 games. The targets aren't there though, so he needs these big plays to save himself. And I believe that Sammy Watkins will see Rhodes this weekend. You may want to point at Robert Woods. He's been the most dominant receiver, but Watkins is a better overall talented receiver, and I believe Rhodes will make sure that he doesn't beat us deep through the air. Which means Woods then gets Trey Waynes or Mackenzie Alexander, depending on where he's lined up for that play. Maybe Terrence Newman, who's been a lot better than Waynes. But either way, I think Watkins is going to get the Rhodes treatment this weekend. Then moving on to the easy sit of the week, and that's Jordy Nelson. I've been avoiding saying him, but this week particularly, he gets the Ravens, and even worse, he gets Jimmy Smith, who is the 4th best corner in the league right now per player profile, and he's PFF's ranked #1 a cover corner or 5th best overall corner on this season. Quarterbacks are averaging a 27.9 passer rating against him this season, worse than just throwing the ball to the ground. Again, avoid Jordy Nelson. Don't get cute. Then bust alert. This one's a little harder to swallow because he's my boy. This one's also a lot harder to predict because of the targets he gets. That's DeAndre Hopkins. He gets the Patrick Peterson treatment. A lot like Jordy with Jimmy Smith. Hopkins gets Patrick Peterson. He's the 11th ranked QB right now per player profiler. I believe he's a little bit lower on PFF, but he's been extremely good just by himself. He's allowed a he's allowing a league low 33.3% catch rate, and he's only given up 20 yards after the catch this season. This is per PFF. Hopkins is a very difficult receiver to cover, but Patrick Peterson has shown the ability he can cover anybody. The only thing that's going to save Hopkins' day is what I just said earlier, is that he gets fucking fed targets. 16 2 weeks ago, 14 last week. And without Watson and Savage in there, Hopkins should see a shit ton in targets. Save for the sleeper bot alert that we got earlier in the day that O'Brien wants to give Bruce Ellington more work. So we'll see what happens going forward. Tight ends, pretty gross with tight ends this week for most mid-streaming tight ends, but I got one sit and one bust alert. Hunter Henry's got a plus matchup this week, but he's been extremely difficult to trust this entire season. He's given you 2 horrible weeks the last 2 games. He's given you 2 horrible games the last two he's played. And right now you can't trust him. And there's better matchups out there. Not great, but better. So for me, he's on timeout. And then lastly, bust alert, Jared Cook. Cook faces the best defense against tight ends over the last 4 weeks. The Patriots have given up a ridiculous 1.6 points per game to tight ends in that span. I know the defenses they've played I know the offenses they've played hasn't been great, but and And Cook's been getting involved a lot more in this Raiders offense, and I think he's just as important. He's almost as important as Crabtree and Cooper. I just don't expect a big week from him. I expect more of a floor game, more maybe 4 for 50. A decent game. PPR leagues, but not a great top 5 finish of what we've been seeing normally from him over the last 4 or 5 games. So that's all my start and sits. A couple news pieces. That's all I got. Tomorrow you will get Nick hopefully back on doing his Anything Can Happen Thursday stuff. Friday Hopper will be back on to do his CFS plays this week. I'm hoping that's going great. Going great for you guys from his notes this season. Then Saturday you get Nick back again doing his ins and outs, and Sunday you get Chris and Nick doing the live Q&A before kickoff, and hopefully I'll be there. I'm going to go finish up some notes, maybe go take a nap, and I will see you guys next Monday for news and things. Peace.